Episode 8, What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602? And it's your boy Icon with a Marvel TV review. And before we get started, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell when you get notified for all my other videos, because I've got other stuff on the channel, as well as the previous 7 episodes of Marvel's What If. So in this particular episode, as we saw in the Captain Carter episode, at the end of the episode, she fell into like this red black hole, and then like nobody knows where she went. So apparently, she was brought that red beam of light that we saw. She was brought to a different Earth by Wanda Maximoff, because we're on a planet, we're on an Earth where Hela is like the queen of like the land. Like we're not in Asgard. We're basically, just think of Robin Hood. We're basically in Robin Hood times. And Hela is the queen, Thor is her brother, like Loki's her brother, Loki's there. All the Avengers are there, but they all have different roles because they're different people on a different Earth. Peggy got brought to this Earth because apparently something was wrong with their reality. Like their reality was like merging with another world, and like these green beams were opening up in the sky, and people were vanishing and disappearing into the sky. So in an effort to save their world, Wanda Maximoff tapped into the power of the Scarlet Witch, and she brought a hero to the planet to try to save their world. The person that she brought to save their world was Peggy Carter. So now Peggy, she's been working with them for a little bit, trying to figure out how to save their planet. And then while they were trying to save their planet, one of those green beams like opened up into the sky, and it sucked Hela into it. So because Hela's gone, they presume she was dead. And then Thor took over as king. Hail Thor, Odin's son, king of whatever town or country they're in. And then now Thor is king, and his first act of king is to sick all of his troops after Peggy and try to lock Peggy up, because Thor was like, oh, the Scarlet Witch brought you here to save our world, and you just let my sister die. And I'm like, bro, he tried to save your sister. Like, don't do that shit. But she couldn't save her. And then because he's upset and he needs someone to blame, he blames Peggy, and he sends all of his troops after Peggy Carter. So Peggy runs from the troops, she tries to get away, and then she goes into hiding. So now while she's in hiding, and this part was funny. So she's in hiding, and then while she's in hiding, like the Watcher, he pops up because he has to do his whole through space and time we ponder the question, what if? And then when he does his usual narration, he's just like, oh, what if a hero failed to do her duty, and now she's become the enemy, and she'll never be able to escape the terror that awaits her. And then Peggy turns, she's like, bro, I can hear you, right? And then the Watcher is like, you could hear me? And then she's like, yes. She's like, sometimes I can. And she's just like, your commentary like isn't welcome. So then the two of them actually have a conversation where he's just like, look, he said, you don't even belong here. This isn't your world. He said, I can take you back to your world. And then she was like, no. She's like, because if this world is doomed, she's like, Captain Carter must do what she has to do to save the day. So then he's just like, but in order for you to do that, you have to find the person, the Forerunner, I believe they called it, the Forerunner, because he said that there's a person that's on this earth who doesn't belong here. And that person is responsible for why this earth is shattering apart. So they said that in order for you to stop the earth from shattering apart, you got to find whoever this person is and get rid of them and send them back to where they come from. So now she's trying to figure that out, but she's like, in order for me to do it, I'm going to need a team. And then he was just like, dear Lord, he was like, don't cause any trouble, Peggy. And then Peggy runs off to go put a team together. So now here's where the Avengers come in. So the first person she goes and talks to, she finds Tony Stark. And Tony Stark is a blacksmith, and he makes things. Like he doesn't have, this is a weird world, because the world that they were on, although it was 1602, they had a very weird combination of both technology and magic. Tony Stark was very curious of all this. He was curious of all like the technology and everything. And then Peggy had told him, she was like, listen, we need to get rid of something. We need to like get rid of this great power before it destroys your world. Tony said that he can build a machine to help them, but he's going to need a power source, which is going to be the King Scepter. So now they're trying to come up with a plan how Peggy can get the King Scepter while Tony Stark builds his machine. Peggy goes off into the woods, and then while she's going off, because I guess she was going to run up on Loki. No, well, she did say that there were some people who, because Tony said she needed a thief. And then she was just like, well, I know just the person who can help. And then she goes into the woods, and then we find Loki, who's transporting gold and like riches across the fields. He gets stopped by basically Robin Hood and his band of merry men. And the characters who end up playing Robin Hood in them was Captain America, Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, and Scott Lang, the Ant-Man. The three of them are basically like, they said Robin Hood and his band of merry men. They've robbed from the rich and give to the poor. Peggy's like, oh, you're just the blokes that I need to help me with my mission. And then that's when Roger sees Peggy, and he's like, oh my God, he's like, my Margaret died years ago. And then she was like, yes, my Steve, he's the enemy now. He's the Hydra Stomper. He's like, but you're not my Margaret and you're not my Steve. And then two of them gaze into each other's eyes, and then Loki dips, and he escapes. But then She tells them everything, and she's like, listen, I need your help. The two of them went to go have a conversation so she can tell everybody the plan. And while they were having the conversation and they were talking about the plan, the king ended up finding them and sent his minions to go kill them. Happy Hogan was one of the minions. He was like the head of security. And the army that he sent to go after Peggy and Steve Rogers, it was basically an army of yellow jackets, which was hilarious. Scott Lang, for some reason, he still had the Ant-Man technology. So again, this is a weird combination of both technology and magic. So they're fighting these yellow jackets, you know, they're doing the damn thing. They're kicking ass and taking names. And then during the whole fight, Peggy ends up telling Steve, you know, she's just like, oh, she's like, you must go. She was like, you know, do what you have to do to protect, you know, to protect the Forerunner. And then like they leave, and then Peggy gets herself captured. You know, she basically like got herself captured so everybody else can get away, which is exactly where she wanted to be, because the person that she needed to turn the tide into this great war ended up being Bruce Banner. So while Peggy was locked up in the tower, the Watcher showed up. Well, she asked him, she was like, are you here? And then the Watcher showed up, and he was like, yes, I'm here. And he's like, girl, why are you doing this shit? You know, he's like, just let me send you back home. He was like, this world is doomed. Like, you don't have to save it. And then she's like, I must, because I'm Captain Carter. And then she breaks free of her chains. She runs through the hallway. She finds Bruce Banner. She pisses Bruce Banner off. He turns into the Hulk, and then she jumps on his back, and then she goes to meet up with the Resistance. So now they meet. So now everybody's met up together. All the characters of the Avengers have assembled, so to speak, and Thor has waged war on Peggy Carter and everybody that she holds dear. Their plan is to, in order for Tony's machine to work, in order for them to find who the Forerunner is, they needed to get the power source from Thor's scepter, from Thor's like staff or whatever. So they sneak into the palace, and then when Thor was sitting on the throne and getting ready to have a conversation, that's when the green light reappeared in the sky. And then Wanda Maximoff, she was like, it's too late. She was like, you know, our world is doomed. And then she tried to use her magic to close the rift. While she was trying to close the rift, that's when the Hulk showed up, busted through, Captain America, Captain Carter, they all show up, this big fight entails. And then while everybody's fighting, there was a moment where Happy turned into the Purple Hulk. And I'm like, how did that become a thing? So now we got Purple Hulk versus Green Hulk. And I'm like, why couldn't we have gotten that in the Christmas episode? It's Hogan, it's like it's Purple Hogan versus Bruce Banner. The two of them are fighting, Carter's fighting, everybody fighting, Bucky fighting. This whole big fight scene happens. Thor and Carter get into a fight because his sword was made out of vibranium, and also it was her shield. And then while they were all fighting, Wanda got to the point where she was like, look, this world's about to die. Thor is going to kill us all. And then she used her power to basically stop Thor in his tracks. And then he was just like, oh, this is treason. And then she was like, no, my king. She's like, you're going to doom us all. She's like, let Captain Carter do her thing. So then they managed to get Tony's machine working. And then when they got Tony's machine working, Carter put her hands into the machine. Basically, Tony built his own Infinity Gauntlet. So he built an Infinity Gauntlet. The gauntlet that he built, the jewel that was in Thor's scepter, it attached itself to the Infinity Gauntlet that Peggy had. And then when Peggy tapped into the power, it showed her the person who's on this earth besides her who shouldn't be there. And the person who was on the earth that shouldn't have been there was Steve Rogers. And then this brings us into the what if, because when he was just like, oh, he said, I remember everything now. Basically, there was a what if world where the moment during Avengers Endgame, when Steve Rogers was fighting Thanos in Wakanda, Steve said there was a moment where I used my shield to try to punch Thanos, and I missed, and I accidentally hit one of the jewels instead. When he hit the jewel, it knocked free from Thanos' glove, and then that jewel, along with Steve Rogers, got transported to 1602. And then she was just like, yeah, she was like, you're the one who's not supposed to be here. And then, you know, she's like, but I can't say goodbye to you, Steve. And he was like, you must, because somewhere we're happy. And then he touched the jewel. And then I guess Steve Rogers and the jewel itself went back to their own time. It went back to the time that they were supposed to be at. And then once that happened, everybody else in the room disappeared. And I thought that was weird. I was like, what happened to all the, I'm like, what happened? I'm like, did that whole jewel suck up all the Avengers, or did it? Well, no, it wouldn't have, because Tony would have been in outer space. So I don't know what happened to everybody. All I know is Steve Rogers disappeared. Everybody was gone, and Peggy was just standing there looking stupid. And then, then after that, and then apparently now she can't get home. And I don't know why she can't get home, because the Watcher kept telling her the whole episode, I can bring you back. I can bring you back. And then now all of a sudden she's sitting in a bar like, oh, I'm trapped here forever. And then while she's sitting in the bar, Doctor Strange shows up, and he, you know, the same Doctor Strange that ran up on Kiore in the Native American episode, or the Spain episode, or whatever. And then while he's talking to her, he's like, oh, Captain Carter, I've been looking for you, and I need your help to do some shit. And then that's how the episode ended, and thank you for tuning in. So I was confused about the ending. I mean, I get it. Steve Rogers went back to where we know where he's from. That particular Infinity Stone went back to where it was from with Steve Rogers. But I'm like, what happened to every other person that was in the room? They needed to answer that. They did not answer that. But this was still a cool episode. Have no beef about it. It was fun. It was very adventurous. And honestly, this whole what if thing is making me want a Peggy Carter animated series. Like, can we get a Captain Carter animated series? Because I would definitely review the hell out of that shit. But share your questions down below and let me know what you think, and we'll continue to talk about it. So check me out on X and on Instagram, always on YouTube, where you can leave your questions. One more episode left, and we will conclude what is the shortest season of all time for Marvel's What If. So some shit's going down because now Doctor Strange, he done brought in Peggy, he done brought in Kiara, and whoever else. I don't know what Doctor Strange is planning, but it's going to be some shit in the final episode, and we're here for it. So that was it, guys. So check out my other videos on my YouTube channel, and until next time, for the season finale of Marvel's What If season, take care, and for the captain, we're out this bitch.